Welcome back to the Caregivers Collective, where we bring you heartfelt conversations, practical advice, and real stories from caregivers who are in the trenches every day. You know who I am? I'm Tangela, and today we're diving into a topic that so many caregivers can relate to: navigating sibling and family dynamics when it comes to caring for a loved one. Caring for a parent, a grandparent, or another family member is challenging enough as it is. But when siblings and family members are involved, things can get a little bit more complicated. Some step up, some step back, and some only appear when there is a crisis. And today, we're going to discuss the different roles that siblings and other family members take in caregiving. We're going to discuss how to manage expectations and how to keep the peace while ensuring that your loved one gets the best possible care. So, in the first segment, we're going to talk about the sibling who doesn't want the responsibility. We've heard it or maybe even experienced it firsthand. There's always that one sibling who doesn't want to take any caregiving responsibility. They may claim that they're too busy, that they live too far away, or simply they feel like they're not cut out for the role. This can create resentment among those who are stepping up. So today we're going to talk about a couple different points. The first point that we're going to talk about is understanding their perspective. Are they truly unable, or are they just unwilling? You see, unable and unwilling are two different things. Unable means that you do not have the ability to. Unwilling means you do not have the desire to. And unfortunately, there are some who are able and unwilling. So, as a caregiver and as a family member, you have to come together and figure out if they're unable or if they're unwilling, and if they are both unable and unwilling. Because if they're unable, that's one thing. But if they're unwilling, then that's something that you got to deal with on another level. I mean, think about it. A family member who's themselves have things going on and they're just unable. Or in their mind, they feel like they're just not cut out for it. And so they may be unwilling. So with those folks, you have to set boundaries for yourself. You have to set boundaries so that the lack of participation does not negatively affect you. Because when you feel like you're doing it all and there's someone else out there who could reasonably help you out and they're not helping you out, this can really kind of get into your mind and really negatively affect you in your caregiving duties and make you feel a certain kind of way. So once you identify what kind of a person, a family member, sibling, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, then you'll know how to deal with them so that they do not negatively affect you. Now, we should probably look for ways that they can contribute in small but meaningful ways. If you have a family member who is unable, but they're willing, I don't know, you can find something small that they can do so that they can feel like they're part of the process. Maybe it's simply sending a meal over because they can't themselves get out of the house or they are unable in some kind of way to add to the help. If they're unwilling, that's something quite totally different. If they're unwilling, you have to really just work that out in your family and try and figure out what to do in that kind of a situation. All right, so we talked about the sibling who does not want the responsibility. Well, maybe you have a sibling or a family member on the opposite end of the spectrum, and that's the one who takes full responsibility. If that's you, you know how overwhelming it can be. You may feel unappreciated, overworked, and even abandoned by your other siblings or family members. So find a way to ask for help and delegate tasks so that you yourself can avoid burnout. Burnout is real. I know for me, because I'm a minister, I go out of town to preach at least once a month. We're working on and creating this outlet for caregivers. I'm a caregiver with my mom. I'm still trying to do other things in my life. And there are times that I feel burned out. So find a way to ask for tasks and delegate other tasks. There are times when I know I'm going to be out of town and I'll send out a message. It's like a beacon call. It's like a Batman call. Hey guys, I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days. I've either purchased some meals for mom and dad, left them in the refrigerator, or whatever I can do to make their lives easier. But then I'll delegate. Hey, who can do dinner on Friday? Who can do dinner on Saturday? Who can do dinner on Sunday? Find a way to delegate tasks so that you can avoid burnout. Also, it's important to set realistic expectation for yourself and others. Know what you can and can't do. Every once in a while, although I am at my parents' 4 or 5 days a week, sometimes that's just totally unexpected and out of the blue that I'm feeling it, So, and I tell you how good God is, because that might be the time that one of my siblings call and go, hey, I don't know if you're planning dinner for mom and dad today, but I got this and I got that and I can do that. And that in itself does a world of good. And I can really and truly appreciate that. And then, of course, there's the importance of self-care. Again, that goes along with that, and seeking the support from outside resources. And we hope that here at the Caregivers Collective that eventually this will become a great resource for a lot of people who are caregivers and they're dealing with being the person who has the majority of the responsibilities. All right, we've talked about that. So what about that sibling who provides financial support but they're not physically present? You see, money is a huge factor in caregiving, and some siblings may contribute financially but aren't physically present for the day-to-day responsibilities. And I know before my mom got to where she is now, I was in the military for 28 years, so I was mainly away. And although my parents didn't require the type of hands-on that they do now, I provided, financially in places and spaces where there was a need, where my other brothers and sisters were there physically. And now that I'm retired, I'm there both physically and financially. So, there are siblings who provide financial support, but they're not physically present. And so you have to know who they are and accept it for what it is. Now, while this is helpful, it can sometimes create tension between family members who feel like they're doing all the physical and the emotional labor. Appreciating financial support while also acknowledging the emotional labor of physical caregiving is going to be very important. And learn how to communicate about finances without creating conflict. Unfortunately, because there are family members who can't provide and can't be there, in any situation, finances can create conflict amongst family members. And this especially is a place where you do not want finances to become a conflicting conversation, because once that foundation of conflict is built, if it is a strong foundation, it is hard to tear that thing down. So don't let that conflict over finances become a hard and solid foundation. So of course, it's going to be important to find the balance between the financial and the physical contributions. All right, how about that family member who's physically present but cannot contribute financially? They're physically there, but they cannot contribute financially. Some caregivers live with or near their loved ones and they provide hands-on care, but they may not be able to contribute financially. And in their mind, they feel like they're doing their duty, and we should help them to be okay with only providing the physical contribution and not the financial contribution. Because at the end of the day, everybody has a role to play. If you're part of the family, everybody has a role to play. And it is going to be crucial for you to figure out what your role is. If it's financial, great. If it's physical, great. But identify what that is so that there will be peace, and then you'll do better as a whole with taking care of your loved one. Because this can strain when financial needs arise, and it can sometimes lead to unrest and crazy discussions, and you really don't want to do that. So it's going to be important to recognize the value of the physical caregiving, even if the financial support is not an option. It is going to be important to have open and honest conversations about money and expectations. What do you expect? Do you expect the one who has the finances to provide all of the meals? And if their fiscal needs need to be taken care of, will they be the ones who take care of that? If so, and someone else can provide for them on a semi-regular basis or a non-recurring basis, or only when they can, have a discussion about that. Know what your expectations are about that and be real about it so that there is no unnecessary rifts concerning that. Because like I said, finances, that financial part, it can really cause a rift in families. Also, it's going to be important to explore financial resources and assistance programs. I know for my family, the programs that are out there, financially, my parents are over that threshold where they won't provide and they won't help because they say they make too much money. Well, I found out too that in a lot of instances, they want or need for you to be dirt poor, broke. And but there are resources and assistance programs that are out there, and later on we're going to start providing you with names of resources and assistance programs so that you can check to see whether or not it's something that is going to be viable for you and your family. We won't know all of the assistance programs for every state, but as much as possible, we're going to start to provide names of some resources and assistance programs that will help to ease the burden. And family, you have the family members who don't show up until a crisis happens. How frustrating is it when certain family members are absent throughout the caregiving journey, and all of a sudden they show up when a crisis like a hospitalization or a death occurs? First, it is going to be important to just understand why it's happening. Maybe they aren't there due to guilt, maybe avoidance, or maybe they just are unaware of the situation. So many times when there's a division in the family and family members stop talking to each other, the information about what's happening stops going out, and the one who's away becomes unaware of what's happening, and they assume that everything is going well, and so that contributes to the lack of communication. Some are just totally avoiding it for whatever the family dynamic reason is. And maybe some are just guilty, or they just feel some kind of a guilt because they can't be there financially or physically. And so they're just not there because of the guilt. Maybe someone in the family has made them to feel guilty because they weren't able to be there, and so they stayed away. There's so many different reasons why family members are not there. And a way to find out is to simply address the last minute involvement and try and do this without resentment, right? Try not to resent them for not being there. Try not to resent them for not providing the same things that you are providing. And the one thing that I have realized and understand is that true caregivers have been given grace from God to do this and to be a caregiver. It's also going to be important to just set clear boundaries to protect your own well-being. Know where you are. And in order to know where you are, you have to have had some conversation with your family members. And once you had that conversation and you know where you are and you know where they are, then it's going to be important to set the boundaries so that you can protect your own well-being. If they decide that they're not going to be there, then say, okay, I understand that you're not going to be there. When would you like to be notified that something is going on? And just be okay with it, because everyone has not been given the grace to be there. And then, of course, there's the sibling who is there for everything. They're there financially, they're there physically, and then they're the ones who do it all, physically, emotionally, financially. And if this is you, you might feel like you're carrying the entire burden alone. And that can take a toll on your health, and it can take a toll on your well-being. So it's going to be important to recognize the risk of burnout and ways to prevent it. Ask for and accept help, even if it's not from siblings or other family members, because there are people who are willing to help you just because, especially if they understand the weight that is on you. Because believe it or not, people do have compassion. There are people out there who have compassion, all right? So don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to accept help if someone offers it to you. The importance of finding outside support, whether through professional caregivers, friends, or support group, is going to be tremendous. And in closing, family dynamics can be tricky. And caregiving often brings out the best and the worst in people. But it is important to remember that no two caregiving journeys are the same, and everyone contributes in different ways. The key is to communicate openly, set healthy boundaries, and to prioritize your well-being. That's it. If today's episode has resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you've struggled with sibling and family dynamics while caregiving. Send me an email at admin@thecaregiverscollective.com or join an online community. And as always, take care of yourself as well as you take care of others. So until next time, this is Tangela, and I'm signing off from the Caregivers Collective.